Everyone in the city knew that CEO Ryan Shen was not just rich, he was unreachable. Women dreamed of marrying him. Parents whispered his name like a prayer. And tabloids ran wild with stories of his cold heart and strict rules. No scandals, no flings, no marriage, ever. At 35, with a billion-dollar empire under his name and a fortress-like reputation, Ryan had turned down every matchmaking attempt, blind date, or casual flirtation. The media called him the Ice King. But what they didn't know was that beneath that cold exterior was a man silently waiting for something, or someone, he couldn't even define, until one rainy evening changed everything. It wasn't a five-star restaurant. It wasn't a private yacht party. It was a street corner, the kind of place Ryan would usually never step foot in. His luxury car had broken down after a late-night business meeting. His phone battery had died. His driver was unreachable, and the rain kept pouring harder. He stood under the awning of a closed bookstore, suit jacket soaked, hair sticking to his forehead, irritated and freezing. That's when he noticed the small noodle stall across the street. Dim lights, plastic stools, a shaky canopy barely protecting it from the rain. No one would expect a man like him to walk into a place like that, but hunger and a touch of curiosity drove him there. Behind the stall was a young woman, maybe in her mid-20s. She looked like 100 others he'd passed by in life. Nothing flashy, no heavy makeup, just a plain apron, rolled up sleeves, and a tired but sincere smile. Her name was Mia. "Just one plate?" she asked as he sat down, brushing water off his sleeves. He nodded, not expecting much. But when she handed him a steaming plate of fried noodles, hot, fragrant, simple, it was like something shifted. The warmth of the food, the crisp edges, the faint garlic aroma. It wasn't gourmet, but it was honest, real. He didn't know why he cleaned the plate. He didn't know why he came back the next night. And the night after that, Mia never asked him who he was. She treated him like any other customer. Sometimes she talked about the weather. Sometimes she said nothing at all. But she always made him noodles, exactly the same way. Crisp, warm, comforting. And every time, something in Ryan softened. He started asking about her day. She'd laugh sometimes and tease him for his fancy shoes. He told her once that they were imported from Italy. She shrugged. "Still get wet in the rain, huh?" That was the first time he laughed out loud in years. Behind those noodles was a story. He could tell. The way she looked off sometimes when she thought no one was watching. The way her hands moved quickly, as if trying to forget something. She wasn't just cooking to survive. She was hiding something too. Ryan didn't tell her he was a CEO. He didn't want to. Because with her, he wasn't the Ice King. He wasn't the man with endless contracts, boardroom wars, and family pressure. He was just a man sitting under a leaking tarp, eating noodles that tasted like peace. But not everyone was happy about this little escape of his. At the company, rumors started. Why was Mr. Shen disappearing late at night? Why was he turning down meetings? His board was restless, investors suspicious, and worst of all, his family, especially his stepmother, began pushing once again for a marriage alliance with the daughter of another corporate giant. "It's time you settle down, Ryan," she said with her practiced smile. "This match will benefit both families." He didn't reply, but something inside him was already tangled. One night, Mia wasn't at the stall. The lights were off. The tarp was gone. Only a closed sign with a hastily written note, "Emergency. Stall closed until further notice." He waited 15 minutes, then 30. Rain fell again. For the first time in years, Ryan felt panic. Not in the boardroom, Not on $1 billion deal, but here. Because he didn't even know her full name. He didn't know where she lived. He didn't even know why she'd left. The next morning, Ryan sat in his office, staring at the city skyline, untouched coffee growing cold beside him. His assistant handed him the file for the merger, but all he could think about was a pair of tired eyes, a quiet voice, and a plate of fried noodles that had made him feel more seen than anything in his marble-covered life. Was he being ridiculous? Maybe. But sometimes the smallest things change the biggest lives. Later that evening, just as he was about to call a private investigator, yes, he'd considered it, he received a delivery, a plastic bag. Inside, a warm box of fried noodles. No note, just the same scent, the same taste. But this time, there was something hidden underneath the napkin. A photograph. Old, slightly torn at the edges. A little girl, standing outside a hospital room, holding the hand of a woman who looked just like Mia. But the date in the corner, 2011, and next to the woman was Ryan's father. How did she have this picture? Who was she really? And why did her noodles taste exactly like the ones his mother used to make before she passed away all those years ago? Ryan stood frozen, 100 thoughts racing through his mind. Was this fate? Was it coincidence? Or was there a deeper story behind Mia's quiet smile? He had to know, because now it wasn't just about a simple plate of noodles. It was about a past that refused to stay buried, and a woman who might just be the only one capable of melting the Ice King's heart, or shattering it. Ryan couldn't stop staring at the photograph. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper. The face beside the little girl. That woman was unmistakably Mia. Her hair had been longer back then, her eyes less tired, but it was her. And the man beside her, his father, looked younger, healthier, even kind. But the image brought back memories Ryan had spent years trying to bury. His father's mysterious absences, the late-night arguments between his parents, his mother's quiet tears behind closed doors. He placed the photo gently on his desk and leaned back, mind racing. Why did Mia have this picture? What was the connection? She'd never once mentioned his name or hinted that she knew who he was. Was she pretending all along? Or had she been just as surprised to see him in front of her stall? That night, Ryan returned to the noodle stall, but it was still empty. This time he walked around the block, asking nearby vendors if they knew where the girl who sold noodles had gone. One old tea seller squinted up at him. "You mean Mia? Sweet girl. She's been taking care of her mother again. Illness came back, I think. She's been in and out of the hospital." Hospital! Ryan's chest tightened. Something about that word made everything feel heavier. He thanked the man and drove home. But sleep didn't come. He searched every hospital in the city until he found a match. Room 415, under the name Wang Lin, Mia's mother. Ryan didn't go in. He watched from the hallway as Mia stood by her mother's bed, quietly spooning soup into her mouth. Her face was softer here, vulnerable. Her hands trembled, but she smiled as her mother nodded faintly. Something about the sight made Ryan feel like he was intruding on a world he didn't deserve to enter. The next morning, Mia returned to the stall. Ryan was already waiting, seated at his usual plastic stool. She paused for just a second when she saw him, but then offered her usual, quiet smile. "No delivery today?" he asked lightly. She shrugged. "Guess you looked hungry." Ryan looked at her carefully. "You knew who I was all along, didn't you?" Mia's hands froze as she stirred the noodles. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she spoke, voice calm but clear. "I knew after the first week. Your photos everywhere. I wasn't sure at first, But then, I remembered your mother. That hit harder than he expected. You knew my mother. She nodded slowly. She used to come by our house. She helped my mother once. Paid for her treatment when no one else would. I was a child, but I remember her warmth. Her smile. Ryan's throat tightened. Why didn't you say anything? Mia looked up at him. Because I didn't want your pity, and because I wanted you to come back for the noodles. Not for the past. He said nothing. The next few weeks blurred. Ryan found himself visiting the stall every night again. The unspoken truth between them, hanging heavy but strangely comforting. He offered to help pay for her mother's treatment, but Mia refused. I don't want anything from you, she said. Just don't stop showing up. And he didn't. But not everyone was blind to the change. At the company, whispers turned into rumors. The woman Ryan Shen was secretly meeting wasn't from a powerful family or social circle. She was a street vendor. Investors panicked. His board demanded answers. His stepmother confronted him at a formal family dinner. You're throwing away your future for a nobody, she snapped. You think this girl will survive in your world? She's not one of us, Ryan. She's a stain on your name. Ryan stood, pushing back his chair. Then maybe it's time I built a name of my own. The next morning, headlines screamed. CEO Ryan Shen, seen with mysterious woman at local hospital. Romance or scandal. Photos had been taken. His private moments now fed to the public. Mia's stall was swarmed by journalists. Someone slashed her canopy. A customer hurled insults. She tried to stay quiet, but the pressure grew heavier. Ryan arrived just as she was closing early, her hands shaking, her apron stained. I can't do this, she whispered. They're tearing my life apart. I'll protect you, he said, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. You can't protect someone from the world they don't belong in. And with that, she walked away. Ryan stood there, soaked in the evening rain, just like that first night. But this time, the warmth of her noodles wasn't there to keep him grounded. Now the question hung heavy. Was love enough to fight a world built on power, pride, and appearances? Or was Ryan too late to realize that the heart doesn't follow contracts? It just wants to be seen, and somewhere, deep inside Mia's drawer, hidden beneath old recipes, was a second photograph. One that held the final truth she never had the courage to tell until now. The rain didn't stop. It pounded the streets like a constant reminder of the mess Ryan had created. But he couldn't care less about the storm outside. Inside his heart, a more ferocious one was brewing. He didn't know what to do, didn't know how to fix this, or how to take back the hurt he had caused Mia. It had been days since she'd walked away, and every time he tried to reach her, she was gone. In the quiet of his apartment, Ryan couldn't get the image of her face out of his mind, her frustration, her fear. He thought of his father, and how he'd always used his power and wealth to control everything, even people. And now, Ryan had done the same. He had used his position to try to save Mia, but in doing so, he'd crushed everything she held dear. He couldn't undo the damage, but he could try to set things right. That night, Ryan drove to the noodle stall. The lights were off, the place empty, but Mia wasn't gone. She was standing behind the counter, sorting through the old pictures she had kept hidden for so long. When she saw him, she didn't smile. She didn't even look surprised, just weary. Why are you here, Ryan? She asked quietly. Her voice had changed. There was a strength in it now, something he hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just the soft-spoken girl he'd met all those weeks ago. It was the woman who had weathered storms alone and never once asked for help. I'm here because I'm sorry, he said. his voice tight with emotion. I used you. I thought I could fix everything without thinking about what you needed. I made things worse. Mia placed the photo she'd been holding on the counter. You didn't just use me, Ryan. You used my mother's illness, my life, my past. You never even tried to understand. You thought money could solve everything. But there's no amount of money that can heal what's been broken here. Ryan swallowed hard. He couldn't argue with that. He had been blind. He had wanted to fix everything his way. Without realizing Mia didn't need his money or his status. She needed respect, honesty, and a chance to decide for herself. Mia, I don't have an excuse for what I did. But I'm here now, and I want to be the man who proves I can do better. For you, for your mother. She shook her head, almost imperceptibly. You don't get to decide that for me, Ryan. I've spent too many years letting others decide my fate. A long silence passed. Between them, Ryan took a deep breath and reached into his pocket, pulling out the second photograph, one he had found at her mother's house when he'd gone through her things, hoping to understand the truth. It was of Mia as a little girl, sitting on her mother's lap, and beside them, his own father. Mia's eyes widened as she recognized the photo. How did you find this? She whispered. Your mother was the one who helped my family when no one else would. She was the one who gave us a chance. That's why she took care of me when I was young. I didn't know until recently that she was the one who made sure I had a future. When my own family wouldn't, tears welled up in Mia's eyes. You didn't know all these years. Her voice broke. You were part of the reason I kept running. I thought you had everything. I thought you'd forgotten about us. I never forgot. Ryan said, his voice raw. I just didn't know how to reach you. But I'm here now, Mia. I'm here, and I'm not leaving. Not without you. Mia's hand shook, but she didn't pull away. She looked down at the photograph of them together, of their shared past. And for the first time in weeks, she smiled. It wasn't a perfect smile, but it was real. I don't know if I can trust you, she said, her voice quiet but steady. But I want to believe you. I want to believe there's still a chance for us. Ryan nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew that whatever happened next, he would fight for it. For them. No more secrets. No more using power to control what he couldn't. The storm outside had finally quieted, leaving a soft hush in the air. The streetlights glimmered through the windows of the stall, casting long shadows on the floor. Ryan reached out, taking her hand gently. She didn't pull away. You don't need to decide everything right now, Ryan said, his voice full of resolve. But when you're ready, I'll be here. And maybe, just maybe, we can figure this out together. And as the rain ceased and the city began to settle into the quiet of the night, Mia looked at him, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. She had lived with loss, with fear, with pain. But in that moment, she allowed herself to feel something else, hope. The road ahead was uncertain, and the world around them would never stop demanding answers. But for the first time, Mia and Ryan were ready to walk it side by side, and that, in itself, was the beginning of something new. It wasn't the perfect ending, but sometimes the real endings are the ones where we take the first step toward a future we didn't expect.